Mayor Rudy Giuliani and special guests. We're live in the Granite State with the chair of the New Hampshire Republican Party, Stephen Stepanek, and the vice chair, Pamela Tucker. Thanks for joining us. Mayor, why don't we start this discussion? A lot of folks want to know. This is the first in the nation primary. And of course, Mayor Giuliani was a part of this process back in 2007, 2008. And we have two really good guests that can share more about the unique nature of what happens here every presidential cycle.
Well, thank you for listening in, and thank you for watching. And it is true. I would say this was when I went through this, both as a candidate and then for other candidates where I helped them. This was probably the most valuable experience you got as a candidate, because you really had to run like you were running for governor of New Hampshire or senator from New Hampshire, or which meant local issues, federal issues, but it really tested how good a candidate you were. So I'm a big proponent of it, and I lost to John McCain because John McCain, almost out of necessity, made the decision to spend all his time in New Hampshire because he had no money. And then he was, by the time Romney and I and Huckabee got here, he just had us beat because he knew everybody in New Hampshire, and we had to play catch up. But it was an enormously valuable process. And I always say the people of New Hampshire all have PhDs. So we have the chairman and the vice chairman, so they're like the head of a whole group of PhDs on politics. So I'm going to have them explain, to the extent that you want to, what happened in the last election, but really more how important is this primary, and how damaging is the decision of the Democrats not to apparently have it a primary here.
Well, thank you so much, Mayor, for coming to New Hampshire. Again, I've worked with you over the years. I co-chaired your campaign in 2008. And New Hampshire is unique because it's all about retail politics.
I remember.
And the people, we have a saying here in New Hampshire, what do you think of this particular candidate? I've only met him 3 times. I haven't made up my mind yet.
Very true.
And so it's all about one-on-one. And unlike a lot of other states, especially the bigger states where everything is 30-second ads, people have no qualms about standing right in front of a candidate and asking them the tough questions and expecting a good answer. And you don't get that. Most people are in awe of somebody like you, Mayor. New Hampshire, you're just another candidate.
Darn right, and you find it out right away.
And they will ask you the hard questions, and they will expect an answer. And so they put you through the ringer here in New Hampshire and Iowa as well. But that is something that the Democrats don't want for their candidates. They want to run candidates that are going to have their opinion only, which is not probably the opinion of most Americans. And so they've discovered that they can run from the basement and not do debates because the media is on their side and is not insisting that they do debates. So they have our congressional delegation, which is all Democrat here in New Hampshire, all voted for a federal takeover of the elections, which our Democratic Secretary of State, Bill Gardner, who I'm sure you're very aware of, at the time said that would be the end of the New Hampshire primary. And they all voted for it. Well, it failed, thank goodness. But on the other hand, the DNC has made a decision, although they conveniently decided instead of announcing it when they were supposed to in early August, they put the decision off until after the election for some unknown reason. But they are going to probably take Iowa and New Hampshire out of the first in the nation primary slots that they have had for over 100 years and substitute other states. We don't know exactly what they're going to do, but they do not believe in retail politics. They do not believe in having the people of Iowa or New Hampshire or South Carolina make the decision. They want to make the decision in smoke-filled back rooms. And I will say, thank goodness, the Republican Party fully appreciates the importance of the primary schedule. And for 2024, we've already codified it that it will be
Thank
Iowa,
God.
New
Well,
Hampshire.
congratulations.
South Carolina and Nevada.
You know, it also illustrates maybe the switch in the two political parties. I mean, they used to be thought of as the party of the poor, the party of the people, the party of the, they're now the party of the elite.
Without a doubt.
And we're the party of the people, for better or worse.
Well, it is, because
Right.
you see the people who are bringing home the paycheck,
Right.
who are the ones at the kitchen table, doing the economics right at the kitchen table. Those are the ones that voted for Donald Trump and are voting for the Republican Party now. It's a total switch. In fact, the country clubs now, that used to be the Republican elites in the country club,
Yeah.
you go there now and it's the liberal elites that are in the country club because the Republicans are out working.
So it's going to be just a Republican primary, and at that, around the same time, they're going to probably pick a left wing or a couple of left wing states so they can orchestrate.
More
Well,
than
they'll
likely.
probably pick states that they can orchestrate to the candidate they want.
They probably will, and one of the reasons they're using to not keep New Hampshire is because we're not diversified enough in how we look. However, if you look at New Hampshire, in terms of our thought, which I think is the absolute most important thing, we have very diverse thoughts. When the first in the nation primary winner is Bernie Sanders in New Hampshire, and yet you have Donald Trump winning it on the right side, there's a huge disparity there, but that tells you we have a lot of different people in there who think differently in New Hampshire. And we're one of the easier states for a small candidate, someone like Pete Buttigieg, who nobody knew
Right.
before New Hampshire and Iowa, and the same with Amy Klobuchar and even Bill Clinton, the comeback kid.
Yeah.
Those were all made in New
Or
Hampshire.
as I point out, McCain.
Yes, and
McCain, if it weren't for New Hampshire, McCain would have to have dropped out.
Yeah.
Because he had no money. He couldn't even travel. The reason he ended up in New Hampshire was he was going to stay in New Hampshire all summer, and Lindsey Graham was going to handle South Carolina for him. And in fact, he had told me, because we were very close, we were hoping he would give up and endorse me. One time in a debate, probably here, I was asked, who would you be for if you weren't running? And I said, John McCain. My staff went crazy with me. They said, what a dumb idiot you are. But I really meant it. I mean, but the reality is, this is a state where you get up real close with a candidate, and you can get a better view of them, and you test them.
Oh, we do. And as Stephen said, those tough questions, those are the questions that they're not going to answer on a national stage or a larger state, which if we go to a first in the nation picked by the Democrats, or they go to a Michigan per se. There's no way an Amy Klobuchar could ever answer those questions on a debate stage. She wouldn't have the time, the money, the resources to ever even compete.
So you're a state now where the biggest vote getter was a Republican. You're a very popular governor.
Yes.
Your state senate is Republican.
Yes.
The state house is Republican. We maintain
The
control.
state house is Republican, and the council, which is people
executive-
might not understand. Executive council is a very
Yes.
important function.
Right.
Yes.
It reminds me of the Old English Privy Council.
Yes, I mean, in New Hampshire, the executive council is probably the second most powerful body behind the governor, because they have to approve every single appointment that the governor makes, whether it be judges or commissioners and so on. And every contract over $5,000 has to be approved by the council. So we have a joke here in New Hampshire, the first thing a governor learns to do is how to count to 3.
Well, right now, the governor has a little leeway there because it's 4 out of 5.
We maintained a Republican majority of 4-1. We have 14-10 in the Senate, and we've got a closer House. It's, I think, 203-197, but we still control the House. So at the state level, we are in complete control as far as Republicans are concerned.
At the federal level, now you've got 2 senators, Democrat, and both Congress
Yes.
members are Democrat.
Yes.
When it looked like there was a chance to take 1 or 2 of those.
Well, we thought that because we were listening to the polls as well, and everyone said that our races, our congressional district 1 with Caroline Leavitt was neck and neck.
But
And
she was ahead in some of those polls.
Yes, she was.
exactly. So you look at that, and you look at Bolduc's race, where he was neck and neck, 1 point behind.
He
1 point
came
ahead.
all the way back, and
Yeah, it went
And-
back and forth, but they were neck and neck, and so money was just pouring into here. And yet, at the end of the day, they both lost by around 9 points.
Yeah, but and if they lost, you would have thought they lost by 1 or 2 points. Right?
Exactly.
Right.
But to have that such a disparity in that, it makes you really wonder what's going on with the polling here. What was missed?
And I will tell you that, we had a meeting with the governor the other day, going over the election. And we were surprised, as was he, because he said polling just the day before was showing, and Neil Levesque didn't even publish it. He said we didn't finish it in time to get it out before the election, but we had Bollig 2 points ahead just before the election. And the governor,
I mean, I looked at all the polls, doing my show, and he wasn't ahead in all of them. She was ahead probably in more than he was, but he was ahead in a couple of polls.
Right.
Which
Couple
tells
of
you it was
independent
very
polls.
close.
Yeah.
but what
So we thought.
ultimately happened, the governor was telling us that the under 35 constituents were breaking for his opponent, Tom Sherman, 53 to 47, which he was fine with because he knew he would make it up everywhere else. The day after the election, of course, they had him up almost 20 points, and he finished up just around 14. And he said, the under 35 vote, he said, I lost that 70-30.
I mean, in a way, he was almost a consensus candidate.
Right.
Everyone agreed that he was a very good governor, and it was almost a non-political race. It was, we're going to vote for the good governor.
Right.
He's a good governor. He likes
No, I know
Right.
he is, but I mean, and you tend to do that a lot in New Hampshire.
Yes.
So the issue.
If you have a governor you think is good,
Right.
you just reelect him or her. So what happened with
The issue we have is what happened to the under 35 vote, because that not only impacted.
could it be the
governor.
colleges?
The colleges are one factor, but I think part of it is, quite frankly, the Democrats bribed 30 million people when they, in fact, promised them, knowing that they couldn't deliver, but they promised them that they were gonna forgive their college debt.
Right.
30 million people signed up for that. And so they're voting for Biden
They're voting
and
for
the
the
Democrats.
money they think they're gonna get.
Right. And so that, and of course, the Democrats and Biden went ahead and did that, knowing full well it was unconstitutional, and knowing full well that it wasn't gonna happen, but it succeeded in getting him those votes.
Yeah, and if you think about it, if it hurt Governor Sununu, who's so strong, it probably also hurt.
Oh, it
Yeah.
rippled through the
It would
entire.
have hurt the others who didn't have the overwhelming strength that he had.
Exactly.
Because if you look relative to where the races came out, the governor won a big victory because he was the leading vote getter.
Yes.
You got to look at what's available.
Right.
And when I looked at it, I said, "Wow, that's great." I didn't realize that he had been projected. I never took a good look at his race anyway. I just knew he was going to win, which probably is dangerous nowadays.
Oh,
right?
well, we all did, but you're right. Now
Right.
we got to really rethink that too.
Now, really interesting, like in New York, Republicans didn't win, except they won the House for us, but they outperformed the polls.
Yes.
So being within 4 points of the governor in New York for a Republican, 5 points, they haven't done that in a
That's
generation.
tremendous.
Never
Right.
done it in a generation. Lee Zeldin did that. He was supposed to lose by about 8 or 10, so we lost by 3 or 4. We were not supposed to take all the seats in Long Island. We took 6 seats in New York. And it wasn't the big wipeout that it's been in the past. So there was a real, from my point of view as a New Yorker, I was disappointed in the result because I almost think we're on our last legs.
Right.
It's like we don't have the room that you have. You're in a lot better shape than we are. But I can see a trend now moving toward Republicans. In New York, we won the suburbs back last year, and we had a big win in the suburbs this year. So you're building something. So it's different in different states.
Oh, it is, and the issues here and how they took down our federal candidates and hindsight's 2020, obviously, was the abortion issue and
Right.
how they hammered home with that, and and we honestly, because it wasn't showing up in the polls said 50, 60, 70% of the people were worried about the economy.
Which is usually
Exactly. And so,
the case.
and so we got a little blindsided on it, and you know we did because
Yeah.
we were listening to the polls.
So and also in New York, we had an issue that overrode even the economy, which was crime.
Yes.
So in almost every state, at least theoretically, the big issue was the economy.
Mm-hmm.
New York, even in the polling, the big issue was crime. The economy was second. And I think that probably helped to change,
in New York.
because I would think crime would overcome the abortion issue more than the economy. Because crime is, am I gonna live or die?
Right.
But
Right.
there are people in New
It's
York who
here now.
really are afraid of that
That one
right
should
now.
be.
Well, I just remember the CNBC reporter, who's very liberal, who said, I'm not feeling safe in New York. I live in New York, I go into the drugstore, I have to have them unlock the thing to buy a tube of toothpaste.
And they had a very
Because it's
bad
shocking.
strategy for it. They used their usual denial strategy for it, which works on some other things. But it doesn't work when you wake up in the morning and 5 people have just been shot in the subway, and the governor and the mayor are saying, well, it's really the media.
Yes.
I mean, they're blaming the media. For the Democrats to blame the media, you know it's not
Anyone
true.
but them. It was like anyone but them.
Then it was a
shot on
Republican
approach.
conspiracy. We were making
Yes.
it up.
Yeah.
Right.
That probably hurt. So now, what do you see as the future?
Well, obviously, going forward, we're gonna have a very robust 2024 presidential primary season. And we'll have to see how that shakes out. I think, if I was a betting man, I'd bet that the president is gonna announce that he's gonna be running again. I think Governor DeSantis would probably throw his hat in the ring, and a bunch of other people.
Well, I think that Governor DeSantis has a tough choice to make, and it got tougher by the big win that he had.
Yes.
So if he had had a more modest win, he might say, let me wait 4 years. But if he waits 4 years, he may not be the DeSantis he is now. I mean, there are people, we go through history, who didn't run when they should, who could have been president. I mean, so there's gonna be a big pressure on him.
Timing is everything.
Timing is
I
everything.
mean, he is already, without doing any work toward, he's the number 2 candidate.
Mm-hmm.
And he's
now
raised
it-
a lot of money.
Right.
And he has national exposure. And with that, and the fact that he won and his candidates won, the whole state was lifted up. Doesn't that kind of almost make him a de facto leader, and we can only have one in the party? I'm just asking.
Yeah, but then on the other hand, you've got a president who lost. But in our party, we often give Republicans a second and third chance. We're much more forgiving.
Well, the Democrats
And
are
one
the
who's-
same way. They
Yeah.
gave Biden 10 chances.
Oh my God, yeah. He didn't only lose, he got kicked out for lying. But also you got a president that even though he's taking some hits now, he does have that, he's got that base of support. I mean, if you
I will tell
if you
you.
go to one of his rallies, it's,
Oh, gosh, it's
Oh, my
crazy.
goodness, it's like a-
It's filled.
it's like an experience I've never had before. And I've campaigned with every Republican presidential candidate since Reagan. I've never
No,
seen
and-
anything like it,
And quite frankly.
including Reagan.
Here in New Hampshire, there's still a huge Trump contingency. There's Trump 2024 flags and signs all over the state.
Then there's a question, who else would join? So DeSantis is a good possibility. I think that Pence,
We'll jump in.
I
He's
think
been
he's
here a
already
couple
has,
times.
right? In a
Yes.
way, I would think Pence figures he's gonna lose.
Well, you've got to.
Chris Christie has said that he's gonna run, he's been quiet lately.
So how many are running down that same Trump road, because you're going to need those voters, and how many are running on a parallel road, like Hogan?
Nikki Haley.
Yeah, Nikki Haley's been up here, and what is it, Hogan out of Maryland, former governor of Maryland?
Hogan could run. Nikki Haley has said that she wouldn't run if Trump runs, but that of course could change.
Right.
I would say the ones that don't care what Trump does would be Christie,
Secretary Pompeo.
Pompeo and Pence.
Yes.
I think DeSantis will consider it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's gonna persuade him to not run, but I think he'll consider it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, should I run? It looks good. But still, you'd have to say right now, it would be hard to displace Trump, right now. And he's kind of weak right now because of the way the election played out.
The president would be very difficult to beat in a Republican primary.
But now comes the question that he would be difficult to beat in the primary. However, our goal is to win elections.
Yeah,
Would we be able to win the general with him?
but so here's
People
where.
will people might be pragmatic about that.
Here's where our process that you're talking about, the much more small d democratic process, makes it harder to really consider that. I've found that professional politicians consider that more than people. People, it's hard. The unelectable argument doesn't work as much with people as it does with professional politicians. So it's true, there'll be a certain number of people that will say, I love Trump, but I think he'll lose the general election. I won't vote for him. But most of them, if they love him, they're going to vote for him. And-
You're absolutely 100%
But it's a
right.
tougher thing to do in an election with people. That's sort of a pragmatic decision that politicians make.
There's too many people that Trump brought into politics and brought into the party, because I was co-chair in 15-16 for Trump here in New Hampshire. And the one thing that I saw over and over again, which I've never seen before, is when I was we had, Trump, he's very frugal. We had a skeleton staff.
I know.
And so I was in my going to the old home days and the county fairs, and I was in my booth with a couple of volunteers signing people up, and we would have lines of hundreds of people standing up. What was the number one question everybody asked? I've never voted. How do I register to vote so I can vote for Donald Trump? He brought so many new people in, and those people aren't in there for politics. They believe in him. And they're gonna come in they're gonna come out and they're gonna vote for him, not because they're politicians, not because they're gonna be concerned about, are we gonna win in the general election? Trump is their man. Trump is the one they're gonna support.
But the thing that, who knows what's going to happen. Ultimately, although he's not painted this way, Donald Trump is a practical man. And if he thought he was going to lose in the general, which I don't think he does right now, but if he thought it, that could create a different result.
Really, even after all of his high-profile candidates didn't do as well as we would have liked.
Well, then he would look at the ones that did. There's always in politics, so he'll look. Let's see what happens, for example, in Arizona.
Yes.
I think if a few of those lose, then it becomes a bleaker situation. If Laxalt, God forbid, loses, because if Laxalt loses, the Senate's gone. Georgia doesn't mean anything.
Right.
And if we lose both Arizona, which we just seem to be, I think Kerry is going to make it because she's close. But I think that Masters is just a little too far out to make it with the number of votes left. So I'm sort of like assuming Arizona goes Democrat.
Yes.
Now they just need one more state to go to 50.
Right.
If they get Arizona, Georgia doesn't really mean very much. In fact, I almost think of Georgia as it's going to get decided by Nevada. If we win Nevada, I think we win Georgia because we'll have the enthusiasm. If we lose Nevada, I don't think we're going to work that hard on Georgia.
No, nobody's
Yeah,
going
no
to
one
care.
So if Kerry Lake were to lose, that would be a big,
Yeah.
that'd be a big blow. On the other hand, if she wins, it's sort of like a revival. So who knows what's going to happen.
Thanks for joining us with America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani and our very special guest, the chairman of the New Hampshire Republican Party, Stepanek, and Vice Chair Pamela Tucker. We're getting a lot of questions from our viewers.
Please.
Let's get right into it. A lot of questions about the First in the Nation primary, right? The Granite State. They want to know, how do candidates reach out to you, and what sort of questions do they have, especially ones that may not have done this before?
Essentially, they can contact the NHGOP and say, we're coming into the state, can you set up some meetings for us? And we're more than happy to put them in touch with various groups. We have all sorts of the various right of center organizations that'll host them for coffees or dinners and what have you, to get them in front of the activists,
Right.
because that's the first step, is to get in front of activists And if they can get the activists excited, then they start building a base and they start building a following, and which is what they need here in New Hampshire.
Is
And
there
it's
a-
all retail.
We were talking about Trump and DeSantis, but is there a chance that somebody through that process, you pointed out Buttigieg on the other side, that somebody could have all of a sudden surprised us and
They
emerged?
would, without a doubt, if someone comes in, and how, I think McCain was a great example, if you come in and you work this state and you meet the activists, you can make a difference and you can make a name for yourself. So that's it, but it takes coming in here and doing that, not just, because if you're a new person like a Buttigieg, you don't have the money to buy television ads. What you have is shoe leather to get out there and beat the streets, we have so many Republican meetings, we have county meetings, town meetings, all of the right of center groups, we have that's where you
So
start.
when I did my reanalysis of my race, that's one of the things I would have changed. I would have done what Trump did, really, not run in Iowa. Just basically say, forget Iowa. Just put all the emphasis on New Hampshire.
Well, that's exactly what McCain did.
Yeah, very smart. But McCain did it because he had to.
I remember.
He was gonna run them both.
Oh, yeah.
Then he didn't have the money, and
Well-
he had to fire his campaign manager, and then it turned out the campaign manager took money from him, and he had a whole big thing.
Oh, yeah.
And we were being very nice to him because we thought, he's gonna drop out and endorse us.
Right. Well, that was also, you have to look at the situation back then. That was in 2008 cycle, which a number of states were trying to jump ahead of New Hampshire and Iowa, so we had the compressed, our primary was in January, we had the very compressed schedule.
You were right, you were like right after Christmas, right?
Right.
Yeah, I
And,
remember.
and so ultimately, unfortunately for you,
Right.
you had too much money.
Yeah.
And you were trying to run.
A national campaign
national
before we won a primary.
Right.
And when we raised $60 million, and
McCain had nothing, and I remember.
well, he actually spent it. He spent $30 million before he got started because he had a campaign manager who,
Yeah.
guy's in trouble again.
Yeah.
Right.
Spend a lot of money.
But I will tell you that I always remember the WMUR news cast that had McCain coming down the escalator at Manchester Airport with his 2 suitcases.
Yeah.
No staff.
Beautiful picture. You could-
No staff, and he got an apartment in Manchester, and he proceeded to do 400 and some odd town halls, and he just spent the next 6 months in New Hampshire doing town halls, and that was it. And he built a grassroots organization, and unfortunately, you were all over the country
Yeah,
trying
we
to run.
were building a presidential organization to run for president before we won the primary. Now here's the problem that hurt him ultimately. Romney had the same strategy I had. We had much better structure than he did, and that hurt him eventually when he went up against Obama. Now we gave him our structure, but it's not the same thing because these are people who really believe in you.
You had to build it, and a current example of something like that was General Bolduc. You had him, he ran, 2 years ago also to get in the Senate, and he lost the primary there. He came in second.
Well, he lost the primary, so he never
Yeah,
got to run against
he-
Cheney.
So he, right, he didn't. So he lost it, but what he'd done is he had built his base. And so for this election cycle, I think he announced right after the 2000 elections, he announced that I'm running again for US Senate, knowing the seat was coming up. And he spent the next 2 years building that base, and he won the primary.
Well, I would think he would be someone they're gonna wanna talk to get his advice on how to win the primary. But you got a lot of people here they're gonna wanna talk to.
Well, we need to win generals too.
Right.
Yeah, no, you've got to. But although it's not as severe in the presidential because there's a
No.
big length of time. Your local, statewide primary, just a few months before, so it's hard to
Yes.
forget what happened during that.
Yes,
But I think on the Republican side, if there is a contest, well, that it's going to be the decisive one because let's assume for a moment that it's Trump and DeSantis. For DeSantis to stay alive, he's either going to he would have to win here or do very well.
Well, I mean, obviously.
And this would be the place where Trump would want to wipe him out. I would think.
Right, and then, because when they go
Let's
to
get it-
South
let's-
Carolina,
Let's get it over
Yeah.
with. Let's get it over with.
And that's critical. And again, Trump in 2016 did not win Iowa. And he came into New Hampshire. He spent a lot of time in New Hampshire. He did a ton of rallies in New Hampshire. And at the end of the day, I remember the night before, we had a big rally the night before the primary, and the WMUR UNH poll came out, and it had him at 21% and Kasich at 19%. And everybody said, that's it, it's over. If Trump only wins by 2 or 3 points, it's like, with the amount of effort that he put into it, he's done. And so I remember the president coming in into the green room, Stepanek, what's going on with these polls? I said, Mr. Trump, our internals have you at 35%. The next day, he came in at 34.7%, and Kasich was at 17%, and the other 15 people were all below that, and he wiped wiped everybody out, and that was it.
I mean, a lot of people didn't believe he could win.
Right.
From the
No.
time he came down the stairs and all, a lot of excitement. He was developing a lot of support. They was, oh, he's not going to win. He's not a serious candidate. He's got Jeb Bush to deal with. Da, da, da. The win here made him very credible.
it
Oh,
did, and the fact
And
that
dangerous.
and the fact that there was 15 candidates
Yeah.
too certainly helped him, because all you needed was the plurality at that point, and he got the 35%.
And
So
he,
it'll happen again.
Which in a big field is a good number.
Yeah, it is gonna be, and if there is that many candidates in 2024.
He will win.
He would definitely.
Oh, the more
win.
I mean, from the point of view of the front runner, the more candidates, the better.
Yes, yes.
But I don't think there'll be that many serious candidates if he's in the race. DeSantis, Pence, Christie, if you consider them serious. Who else? Oh, Youngkin, maybe.
Comment below as we talk about New Hampshire, the first in the primary, with special guest, the chair of the New Hampshire Republican Party, Steven Stepanek, and Vice Chair Pamela Tucker. Comment below. First in the nation primary, but if you're tuning in, Trump, DeSantis, or name a third person, if that's who you're supporting, who you're looking forward to running in 2024. So we're getting more questions here. Folks kind of want to know maybe a little bit about both of your backgrounds while we're here. So Stephen and Pamela, if you'd like to share maybe a minute or two worth of your background and who you are, our viewers are very curious.
Steve was involved in my campaign, and that was before they had television.
all right? Actually, I was a business person. I graduated from Villanova University down in Pennsylvania. I started my first business, I like to say, when I was too young and too stupid to know any better. I was 24. And I lived in Massachusetts, but moved up to New Hampshire to start my business, which was a paper converting company. I then got involved in politics because I was convinced at a New Year's Eve party to run for selectman after a couple of cocktails. And then I got involved in state politics. I ran as a first state rep. I served 10 years as a state rep in New Hampshire. I was the co-chair for Rudy's campaign in 2008. And then, according to Corey, I was the first elected official in the country to publicly endorse and support Donald Trump when he ran in 2016. He made his announcement in June in New York, got on his plane, flew up to Manchester, New Hampshire, and I introduced and endorsed him at Manchester Community College. And that made me the first elected official in the country to support Trump, and I was on board with him ever since.
That's pretty colorful. I don't know if I can match that. I jumped into serious politics. I've been involved pretty much my whole life, but serious politics, I ran in 2008 because my town didn't have a state representative candidate on the Republican side. So I was out there knocking doors, doing that.
Is it a very heavily Democratic town?
It was a mixed town. It was a Democrat, an incumbent Democrat who was basically like the minority whip or whatever. I was running against him, and you just go out and do doors. And honest to goodness, meeting the voters is what made a difference. I had Obama Tucker signs in people's yards. That's what it took. So from there, in 2008, I won. In 2010, we took over the House. I became Deputy Speaker of the New Hampshire House. Was
That
in
was
the
quick.
Well, you know,
That was
rising
quick.
stars.
To be deputy speaker.
Oh, what? Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, New Hampshire, we did things on talent here,
Yeah, yeah.
not seniority.
Well, that's true, Becky.
And I
Maria likes
stayed.
that.
Yeah, I was elected for 4 terms. I got out. It needed some time away, and then Stephen approached me 4 years ago. We needed some change on the party level, and so I ran as vice chair. We kind of ran as a ticket. Him as chair and me as vice chair, and we put into place a plan that Stephen came up with of you need a business plan to run a state. And he did that, and we've executed beautifully on it. He raises the money and I work with the activists, and it's a great.
When you say the
program.
activists, you mentioned that term too. Tell us what you're talking about. The activists are the people who are the most involved, and
Both.
and in the early stages, they're going to be really critical, right?
Well,
Yes.
again, it's the right of center groups like the gun groups, the pro-life groups, the pro-family groups, the tax groups. So we have all of those here in New Hampshire, and they have big constituencies. So, for example,
And they're big issues. I mean,
and they're
that's it.
big
Yes.
issues in New Hampshire, and I wear a lot of hats here in New Hampshire. One of my other hats is I co-founded and run with the former speaker that both of us served under, Bill O'Brien. We run the Right of Center meetings here in New Hampshire, which is an affiliate of Grover Norquist's group. And we have about 100 people every the second and fourth Wednesdays of every month that come to our meetings. And these are all of.
And this goes on year round. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
This is not just primary season
No,
or
no,
election
we've
season.
been doing this now for 6 years, and we've never missed a meeting. It's the second and fourth Wednesdays. In fact, we'd love to have you come on as a
Yeah,
speaker.
please, I love to come up here. I really do. I find the discussions up here, even when we're just sitting around a restaurant, so exhilarating. I mean, people know what they're talking about.
Yeah, they do.
On both sides.
Right, and we have sort of a little contest with Grover, because it's like who got the most speakers, the most people to show up at their meeting. But he does come on to our meetings, he zooms into our meetings almost every meeting.
It's gonna be interesting to see I mean, 2024, as far as the names are concerned, we pretty much have it. But, you can't assume the issues are gonna be the same.
They're not,
I'm
but
gonna tell you, if I go back to 2008, we ran our primary all on the war. And, was it right or wrong to get into that war? The other thing that helped John was the surge worked right in August, September. We were all in favor of the surge, but he was associated with it much more than anyone else. So that helped him a lot. And I think he won the primary largely on foreign policy. All of a sudden, in September, right before the election, we go into what the Democrats wanted to paint as a depression. And the one area where John would tell you himself he was weak is the economy, where Romney or I would have been much stronger on the economy. I ran the largest city in the country and had to deal with bankruptcy. Romney was a businessman. John was bored by economic issues, and he would tell you that. And all of a sudden, the whole thing's without any expectation. When 11 debates, if we got 3 questions on the economy during the debates, it was a lot. It was all about, it was still about abortion, gay rights, was then an issue. We sort of put that to bed, ultimately. Immigration was a big issue back then, big ip I remember Romney attacked me for having a sanctuary city, and I attacked him for having a sanctuary mansion. I said he not only has 4 sanctuary cities in Massachusetts, he's got his own sanctuary mansion with his own, I was going to say slaves, but I thought, oh boy, that'll get me in trouble.
Thanks for joining us. We're live with America's Mayor Rudy Giuliani and special guests, New Hampshire Republican Party Chair Steven Stepanek, who we now can confirm was the first elected official to endorse President Donald Trump, then candidate Trump, in 2015, along with Vice Chair Pamela Tucker. We're live here in the Granite State. Of course, we had some elections Tuesday, and we're looking ahead to 2024 as the New Hampshire Republican Party leadership What message do you have to conservatives, to some folks who maybe feeling a little bit down, right? Things maybe didn't go as strong as we'd like nationally, and of course we know what happened here in the Granite State. What message do you have to folks who maybe, not feeling the best these days?
My first thing is, hey, we still won. We did. We win. We should be proud of what we did. We got blindsided and we still won. Moving ahead and looking at what we want to do in moving up to the 2024 elections is we do need to work on marketing and getting into those, if we want to look at different groups. And issues are going to be different. Economy will always be the number one issue, but we need to start talking to people that are outside our circle of, not of trust, but our circle of comfort. We need to go out and talk to people that we've never talked to before about what the Republican Party means if we want to have new branding. If they're branding us as something that we're not, we need to change that, and it's up to us, each one of us, to make that difference.
Now, I think that's very, very important. I mean, there was a time in which they've done this Social Security thing forever.
Yes.
They did it to Jeb Bush the first. I was very involved in Jeb Bush's first campaign for governor. And it was the year before I ran for mayor, and we sort of had a deal. I was going to campaign for him. He was going to campaign for me. And he was supposed to win, remember? And
Yes.
And his older brother was supposed to lose in Texas.
Right.
They did the Social Security thing on him. They did this. The Democrats did 2 weeks of, he's running for governor. How could he? How? I mean, and Jeb is an intellectual, so to him this was like ridiculous. I shouldn't even answer this. I said, I don't think people know that you got to answer it. You got to, and he didn't answer it really correctly because it's irrelevant. And that could be one of the reasons he lost on Social Security. They've been running this on us since Social Security started. In fact, it's so bad. The Washington Post went after Biden this time for being a liar, saying that we were going to cut Social Security. Basically, they said to him, "Come up with a new lie." But it still works.
Yes, it does.
It works, and it works because obviously the Democrats have the liberal media to reinforce.
That is a thing
their
we
lies.
have to. We
And
have to
that's
run.
something-
We have to run much better. It's just simple fact. We got to run much better campaigns than they do.
And we've got to
Yes.
reach out to our voters in different ways, and we have to do it earlier. And we also have to figure out how to reach out to that under 35 vote, which basically they're right now coming out of COVID. They were the ones sitting in their pajamas in front of their video games, getting $1,200 a week, enhanced benefits from the government, and so the economy doesn't impact them yet. High prices and all of this, they're sitting there getting literally all this free money, which has been continuing almost right up until the election this time. And on top of that, the promise of we're going to forgive your debt was enough to sway them. We have got to get a program going to reach out to them, and I think over the next 2 years, the economy's going to slap them in the face a little bit.
No question about
Because
it.
we are going into a recession, which has been created by the Democrats, and we've
And
got to define
Absolutely.
the fact that this recession that we're going to be going into was created by the Democrats. Because the first thing the Democrats are going to do is say it's the Republicans' fault. The Republicans did this. We've got to start right now marketing and letting everybody know this is a Democratic inflationary spiral. The recession that is coming afterwards because we've had to raise interest rates to get inflation under control is directly created by the Democrats. They own it. Biden owns it. And as these young people start getting slapped in the face with reality, it's got to be, they've got to blame the Democrats, not the Republicans, because the reality that's slapping them in the face is created by the Democrats.
Dr. Maria,
Yes.
you have a question?
Um,
You're a lifetime New Hampshire resident. You ran a hospital here.
yes. I am concerned how our state is changing. It seems very different now. I am pretty good friends with Joe Kenny, an executive counselor. And at one time, he lost one of his elections, and both he and a few state senators I know said it's because of the college student vote. In our Constitution, it says domicile. So people have interpreted that if you live and sleep here, and a lot of us feel that it should be a stronger language of a resident in our state. If you come here from California, Oregon, and you just want to go to school, but you really plan on returning to Oregon or wherever, you should vote in your own state, absentee ballot or whatever, but shouldn't be allowed to sway our votes. Do you think the college vote, Plymouth State, Dartmouth, radical left campus there, are they swaying and silencing New Hampshire rights voices?
Well, that has always been an issue. Quite frankly, we were hoping to get a bigger majority because we have put forward a constitutional amendment that was very well crafted. It passed the House and the Senate with every Republican voting for it and every Democrat voting against it back in this past cycle. But we need a 60% majority, and we unfortunately did not get that this cycle. But the idea of the constitutional amendment was that only United States citizens and New Hampshire citizens that are domiciled in New Hampshire and New Hampshire is their primary residence can vote in New Hampshire.
I like that.
And so that is something that we have to continue to work on.
Is Chris Sununu supporting that?
Yes.
Okay.
And so I think it may be something that we can push forward as an RSA until such time as we get the majorities to put it on the ballot as a constitutional amendment.
Didn't you have like a veto-proof majority at some point? In the
2010.
I thought so.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes, yes.
So you'd have to get there to do.
Well, no, veto proof is 2/3. In order to pass a constitutional amendment, you only need 60%.
Oh, well, that's
Yes.
more doable.
Right.
Right, it is doable, we just gotta have the right people in there.
So
Right.
now, it seems to me, listening to you, and I may be wrong, that you think there's a little bit more room for a more open primary. Meaning that if President Trump were to run, there's still a possibility or a realistic possibility for someone like DeSantis to win.
There could be, I think it depends.
Or somebody else.
Or somebody else. It depends, I think, as we were talking, how many people are in that Republican primary? Because if you, again, you start dicing up that pie,
Oh, sure.
it's, who gets that big piece is gonna win. So I think that's gonna be the number one factor. After that, it's anybody's guess, but I think there's opportunities for other candidates to come here, and there's something to be had here.
So does it get beyond DeSantis, or, I mean,
I
those are
think
two.
so.
Now you got the big giant, right, Trump. You've got the emerging giant, DeSantis.
But you
So
also,
I'm the third person here. I start thinking, where's the room for me?
well,
I mean-
there's the Youngkins of the world, there's, Governor
uh,
Hogan came up.
Youngkin is very attractive because he comes at it totally differently. He's like he's a totally different candidate, emphasizing different issues, and he owns kind of the parent issue.
Sure, and you take candidates like that, and that's an important issue. And you look at our state where the biggest Republican to win was a moderate Republican in New Hampshire. So if we're talking about a Republican primary here, there's a possibility that
What about your
someone
governor?
who's- That's what I'm talking about.
Well, what about your governor as a candidate?
We'll see what he wants to do.
I mean, 6 months ago, that actually was speculated a lot more than now for some reason. I just read a list of 10 possible candidates if Trump doesn't run.
And he was
And
on that
not-
list.
No, he wasn't on
He
that
wasn't
list,
on that
but he was on the list about 6 months ago.
I would say that in a Republican primary against Donald Trump or Governor DeSantis, Chris Sununu would have a much harder time because our Republicans tend to be much more conservative, and he's more of a moderate, which is why he does so good.
Of course,
Why he does so good in a general
Now,
election.
I remember though, in your primary, independents can come over and vote,
Yes.
Yes,
and even Democrats?
no.
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 We have a cutoff point of changing party registration. A Democrat
That's right.
can
Okay.
if they're
I got it right.
registered 30 or 90 days prior as an independent.
Which I also think is one of the reasons why it's a good test and a lot more diverse than people say it is. Because
It's not a
very,
close primary.
very often, the one who wins is the one who can make, you're even in some ways campaigning against a Democrat to get that independent to come over to our primary instead of theirs.
Well,
And if you're good at that, that means you're one hell of a candidate.
Here's the one wild card in the 2024 primary. If in fact the Democrats do as they've indicated they're going to do, which is say you're not going to have, New Hampshire's not going to be a primary. That means you're going to have, you're going to have nothing but, third, fourth tier Democrats coming to run in New Hampshire. So that means the only contest, it's going to be like a presidential contest.
Wow.
The only contest is going to be the Republican primary, which means that you're going to have all of the independents and probably a significant number of Democrats who will change their registration, knowing that there's no Democratic primary, and voting in. So it's going to be like a general election in the New Hampshire primary.
Very, very interesting.
So
We're gonna have to close this, but one thing that's a real important issue, and I have no idea how to get around it. We've seen radical left people who do not want information to come out really destroy people's reputations through false media, false news stories. We saw it with Mayor Giuliani, unfortunately, in response to he was coming out about the Russian hoax, which we now know it is truly a hoax, but he was one of the first people talking about the fake Russian collusion story. So they started pouncing on him then. And then, unfortunately, when he got Hunter's laptop, which he did not ask for, and there was alleged crimes in it, he thought every American citizen would want to know. That's when they doubled down spending money. We just did an interview with General Bolduc. He talked about the lies that were told to him. We know it's in every election, but how do you combat it? We never think that these things happen in New Hampshire. At least I have a very high bar for New Hampshire. But at St. Anselm's Institute of Politics, Neil Levesque censored a panel being done there because of Mayor Giuliani, who's never been committed of a crime, never broke the law, has nothing but been an upstanding citizen, and his staff member, Ted, was treated terribly by that institute, and we don't expect the censorship here in New Hampshire. Is that a surprise to you?
this is the first time I'm hearing it, and I am surprised that Neil would have done that, because I know Neil quite well. So I am surprised that he would not allow a panel to occur at St. A's.
Well, we have seen on campuses here where speakers who might be a little more controversial on the right side being shut down in New Hampshire at some of our
Especially at, for example,
Dartmouth.
But you wouldn't think of it as St. I might have
It's
just
censored.
very fond memories of St. Anselm. I even got an award from them.
They have a Giuliani 2008 sign still up in the institute.
And
I walked right by it.
I was excluded because I'm a danger to democracy.
All Republicans are, according to
Right.
Biden.
Yeah.
We
Which
all-
I feel
especially
really
me,
bad
because I'm
about.
a Trumpster.
Yeah.
But this is a problem nationwide.
Yeah,
with
we
the-
do see it
with
on
the way in
policy
which
here.
education has been captured by them, and we're shut out. And then, actually, it surprises me that Republicans, conservative in particular, have as much support as we have. When you consider the 80% of the media,
Or more, yeah.
if you watch broadcast television, you're never going to hear anything about it.
And quite frankly, as we're moving forward, we are seeing more and more people, because of social media, because of the pushback, and as an example, we wanted to shut down big tech. But before we do that, we want to say, wait a minute, because big tech started out as liberal. But now, all of a sudden, with Truth Social and Rumble and now.
Getter, there's
all-
Getter.
Right.
Yeah.
Twitter.
Those
And now
Yeah.
those are all now, the conservatives are pushing back. So now all of a sudden, the government wants to censor, because they don't like what is happening, because we will take over social media. And so we don't wanna put in the restrictions that we initially wanted to do. We don't wanna do that because the freedom that exists right now is allowing the conservatives to build up organizations to fight back and get our word out across social media. And, that is how we combat it. And social media is where everybody's getting their news now. Nobody's watching,
Decreasing,
Yeah.
Right.
decreasing.
I think the Milliards is a great place for a
Not completely.
conservative station that also has social media platforms.
Right.
Thanks for joining us. Just a minute left here. Mayor Rudy Giuliani with special guest, New Hampshire's Republican Party Chair, Steven Stepanek, and Vice Chair, Pamela Tucker. As we travel the country, the mayor likes to ask a couple of questions in closing when we can. One of them being, name a spot in New Hampshire. We have viewers all across the world and across the country. If people are visiting New Hampshire, maybe it's ahead of 24, what is one place they need to go? You each get to answer this question. Give us a place.
If you come in the fall, when New Hampshire's foliage is the most beautiful place in the world to be, the one thing you want to do is drive the Kang, which is the Kangamangas Highway. It's a 22-mile highway through the heart of the White Mountains, and it is the most gorgeous ride you will ever have in your life.
I would have to say up north too, go up to Bretton Woods, it's a great hotel up there, and climb to the top of Mount Washington. It's unbelievable, the experience and the view.
And
I still have my sign that I climbed Mount Washington in the back of my car when I was 22 years old. My girlfriend and I drove up to the top of White Mountain. I have, there's only one spot you gotta come to first. You gotta come to the Hilton Garden Inn. So you can have a ballpark in your backyard. The first time I came here in 2007 to, scout around, whatever, we didn't get in here until about 2 o'clock in the morning, and they stuck me in a room. And I get up the next morning, it was winter, snow on the ground, I opened my curtains, and I said, my God, it's a baseball field. So I could be having to go to Portsmouth from here. And if they don't have a room with the ballpark, I'm very disappointed.
and in closing, if folks want to learn more about the New Hampshire Republican Party, the NHGOP, do you have a website, anything you want to plug today?
Yes, nhgop.org. Contact us.
nhgop.org.
Thanks again, everybody, for joining us, and we'll see
And I
you.
think people will agree with my original premise, because they lived up to all the expectations. People in New Hampshire are all PhDs in politics, and when you're leaders, wow,
Yeah.
they really know what they're talking about.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us. We'll see you tonight at 8 p.m. Eastern.